Why would UUCC hang a Black Lives Matter banner? The real question is, why wouldn't we? Our first principle says we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Doesn't that include Black lives? Of course, hanging a banner isn't really doing the work for racial justice in our community. I propose to you that our faith requires us to act. Some UUs have joined the new online Beloved Conversations, which is beginning soon, and others have joined the Authentic Diversity Covenant group. Others have chosen to participate in Greater Cleveland congregations and the ACLU Action Team for Northeast Ohio. You will find many ways to stand up for racial justice. To paraphrase Brian Stevenson, people say all the time, if I were living at the time of slavery and lynching, I would never have tolerated anything like that. And the truth is, we are living at this time and we are tolerating it.
The Earth flag, as you know, has a picture of the Earth from space, and it always makes me think of what Neil Armstrong said when he first saw it, that it was this fragile, small blue dot floating in this sea of blackness, and that it was so small he could cover it with his thumb, but on it was everything that matters to us: civilization, history, art, nature, everything that we love, everything that we care about. And it seemed to him that all the conflicts between people were so inconsequential, and he had this a great feeling of oneness of all of life on Earth. So I think the flag represents to the community that our congregation cares about environmental issues, and that we are committed to living eco-friendly lifestyles and to fighting climate change. It gives a hint of how some of us really are aware of the drastic urgency of this issue. And I'm hoping that because of that, because of publicly expressing this, that more people will get on board and will be able to accomplish the things that need to be accomplished to protect life on our blue boat home.
Hello?
Why, Jenna Bradbourne, it's David Cantor. Are you excited about your first co-hosting experience on UUCC Zoom in Live?
Absolutely. I'm really curious about what Alan Georgia has to say.
Me too. It's the reason I'm calling you. I'm thinking about the video promo for Alan's appearance, and I don't have a picture of him. So, I was thinking, given his interest in superheroes, how about if we use a superhero as our video image for Alan?
That's a great idea. Who did you have in mind? Superman?
No, too clean cut.
Batman?
No, too dark. Hey, how about Wonder Woman?
Come on. I can't imagine Dr. Georgia wearing a miniskirt. How about Green Lantern?
No, as Kermit the Frog said, it's not easy being green. Look, I know you've got to go, so let's just think of some of the attributes we're looking for, and I'll come up with someone.
Okay, he's an educator, so someone who has a majestic air about them, and uses tools, and maybe in this case, longish hair.
Majesty, tools, long hair. Got it. I'm on it. I'll let you know what I come up with. Take care.
All right, bye. Thor. God of Thunder. Really?
Okay, gang, put it on your calendar. Monday, September 28th, 8 to 9 p.m. UUCC Zoom in live with special guest Alan Georgia, hosted by me, David Cantor, with co-host Jenna Bradbourne. Look for the Zoom in link in your emails on Sunday evening. It'll come from Zoom in Live, not from UUCC. Hope you can make it. Looking forward to seeing you then. Take care. Bye now.
I light our chalice this morning with the words of the Reverend Jessica Purple Rodella. Listen. Listen to the silence. Listen to the wind. Listen to the stars. Hear trees. Dance. Dance to the beat of your neighbor's heart. Dance to the rhythm of your childhood dreams. Come, let us howl our hallelujahs. Come, let us pray and sing and celebrate. Come, let us worship together.
You might wonder what I'm doing out in the playground. Well, I came down here earlier today just to see what I could see and what I could find here, and I found this ball. Soccer ball, maybe? Volleyball? Anyway, I don't know if you can see, but it says right on it, it says Linger. I don't know if it's somebody's last name or direction. But since today's service is all about balance, I decided I would just go with it. So, welcome to our service.
Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears. Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears. On the dusty earth drum beats the falling rain. Now a whispered murmur, now a louder strain. Slender silvery drumsticks on an ancient drum. Beat the mellow music, bidding life to come. Chords of life awaken, notes of greening spring. Rise and fall triumphant over everything. Slender silvery drumsticks beat a long tattoo. God, the great musician, calling life anew.
Morning breeze, spirit song, sing to me at the break of dawn. Small to me at the break of dawn. With the heart to break of dawn.
Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears.
With the heartbeat of the sea.
Every week when we gathered, we took time for what we call Joys and Concerns, where people have a chance to come here before service and light a candle in silence, or to write in our book and have their joy or sorrow read with the congregation and put a pebble in the water. We can't do that right now, but I'm thinking about all of you. I know there are several joys in our community. For that, I'm grateful. I also know there are difficult times for people, and people have sorrow. And that sorrow deserves support and care. For all these things, and lastly, for gratitude for us being together, I light our candles. As part of our observances of joys and sorrows today, I want to lift up the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a woman who lived a life of courage and strength, a woman who took care of herself physically until the very end, trying to stay alive as long as she could to do the good work she was doing. Her loss to us is great, and may she always be an inspiration for us.
One of my patients told me that when she tried to tell the story, people often interrupted her to tell her that they once had something just like that happen to them. Subtly, her pain became the story about themselves. Eventually, she stopped talking to most people. It was just too lonely.
So for some reason this week, it so happened that things conspired so that like 4 or 5 different people came to ask me what I most missed during the COVID pandemic. Like, you know, what it was that I can't do right now that I really wish I could do. I know we've all been feeling it. It's been a lot. And there are lots of things, you know, we absolutely can't do. So weirdly, what I realized is what I really wish I could do that I can't really do anymore isn't really because of COVID. It's because I'm an adult. But it's what I want to do at COVID and really at this entire year, which has been, again, kind of a lot. I have never so wanted to have an absolute hair-pulling, face down on the floor, all limbs pounding type of tantrum. Never has there been a year where circumstances have been so difficult and so complicated that's made me want to lose my composure and embrace my inner toddler and just go at it. If you haven't realized it yet, we're living actually in a really kind of a golden age of recorded tantrums because of the internet. So the tantrums I was having when I was 4 years old, of course, you know, there's no evidence of those anymore. But now the collective tantrums of all kinds of families are out there on the internet to be seen and shared. And so it turns out this week I found a few images of tantrums that really spoke to me, because, you know, sometimes it really is children who are allowed to live their most emotionally truthful lives. So here we have a very, very sad kid. And what's the reason? Well, not able to eat styrofoam. Sat at the table because she can't have more bacon. Oh my, can I understand that? This was one with clearly concern for sunblock, but not necessarily something that you need while it's raining. I completely understand the frustration when your dinosaur cannot eat the Lego man's head. And this one, you know, looks like a bump on the head, but it turns out it's not enough toes. Here there's clearly a water motif, and it turns out that this particular child would just rather drown. Oh, this one I very much feel deep in my bones. The daffodils are gone, and we can't bring them back. And if we needed any other proof of the fact that kids are going to feel their feelings where they're going to feel them, the famous tantrum at the Oval Office. Of course, crying is very rarely the answer. And it isn't surprising, then, that the whole concept of being balanced and being measured in our response to the difficulties we face in the world is part of all kinds of different philosophical and religious traditions. You know, some of the most obvious ones are the states of peace and contentment that are so central to the teachings of the Buddha. You know, one of the meditative states that one needs to learn on the path to nirvana in Theravada Buddhism is upekkha, or equanimity of mind. It's interesting that the teachings around this virtue explain it's not only important to avoid like greed or desire or like a passionate hatred. Just as important is to avoid indifference or apathy or cynicism. These teachings are actually also just as important in the Western philosophical tradition. So there's a Greek word, sophrosune, which describes like the state of having control over your mind and your emotions so that you can pursue a good life while not being consumed by desires or temporary cravings. It's a way to bring wisdom into our perception of our needs. It's a really important lesson for those of us living in a culture so premised on immediate gratification. You know, perhaps one of the most extraordinary expressions of this idea comes from the centering on the ideal of balance in Jainism, that ancient southern Indian religious tradition. Jainism emphasizes a great many ideas that we also see in Buddhist thinking, but there's an emphasis on the idea that nonviolence and the pursuit of peace is wrapped up in an intentional disciplining of ourselves so that we do not create a world of unbalanced needs, which in Jainism is the very basis of suffering. So obviously, as an adult, you know, I should know to keep myself from having tantrums. But also, as a person of faith and conscience, it turns out that pursuing a sense of balance and measure is also at the back of some of the most important values that I try to keep. So keeping myself from these tantrums is also about confronting a world that, of course, always does have times for grief as well as for happiness, times, as they say, for harvest and to plant, times when you can feel optimism and excitement, and of course times to also feel serious and committed to continuing the work that we all need to do as we pursue a better world for all of us.
I take care of myself first, because I am deserving of exquisite care. I take care of myself to maintain the capacity to help others. I move and stretch my body every day. I spend time in nature, attuning my senses to the earth's wisdom. I ration my daily exposure to the news. I identify and access credible sources of information. I protect myself from becoming overwhelmed by information about the pandemic. I pace myself. I sit with the reality of uncertainty and impermanence. I allow it to temper my desire for control. I listen without judgment to others' reactions, which may be different from mine. I forgive myself and others when stress brings out our shadow selves. I feel fully when I'm fearful. I experience sadness fully when I am sad. I allow anger fully when I'm angry. I relish joy fully when I am joyful. I seek out healthy pleasures and indulge in them without guilt. I remind myself that feelings are transient states that move through me. They do not last, and they do not define me, nor do my thoughts. I balance my drive for self-improvement with compassionate acceptance of myself as I am right now. I initiate contact with loved ones to let them know I hold them in my heart. I seek out with increased sensitivity those who are the most vulnerable. If possible, I share my resources with those who need help to survive. When possible, I move away from people, situations, and experiences that do not serve my highest good. I strengthen my connection to my sources of spiritual strength so that I continue to be replenished. I acknowledge the nearness of death as a key motivator for living a full life. I pray for the suffering of all beings to cease. I grieve my losses and celebrate my successes. I remain open to new ways of being, surprising sources of joy, and anticipated discoveries every day. I would rather sit on a pumpkin and have it all to myself than be crowded on a velvet cushion. Each week, we come together as a people. Together, we share stories, love, aspiration. We also share our bounty in ways that express our religious UU values. May this important ritual of sharing abundance remind us that making our world better is a task best shared.
Wendell Berry. If you've never heard of him, maybe you should get acquainted. Wendell Berry is an American novelist, poet, essayist, environmental activist, cultural critic, and a farmer. He's perhaps best known for his 1977 bestseller, The Unsettling of America, Culture and Agriculture, a book-long polemic which argues that responsible, small-scale agriculture is essential for the preservation of the land and the culture. Berry has served as a moral beacon to Americans for half a century, warning of the dangers of consumerism, industrial agriculture, and the dissolution of rural communities. Now, as we face the greatest environmental crisis in history and grapple with deep polarization, his impassioned arguments on subjects ranging from industrial farming to technology have taken on a new urgency. Born and raised in Kentucky with a 7-generation heritage in the area, he was lured away by the promises of urban life only once. After graduating from the University of Kentucky, a fellowship at Stanford, a Guggenheim, and a job teaching English at New York University, he left Gotham after only 2 years. He and his wife loaded up all they owned into a Volkswagen Beetle and headed back to Kentucky. Wendell Berry's causes and activisms are myriad, from climate to clean energy, war, the death penalty, and beyond. Through whatever he's writing, Berry's message is constant. Humans must learn to live in harmony with the natural rhythms of the earth or perish. Particularly in his prose and poetry, he emphasizes that he is the man and writer that he is because of his sense of place, that his writing is driven by what he has seen and felt in the Kentucky watersheds of his home. As a nature writer, his name is almost as familiar in UU congregations as Mary Oliver. His novels about rural life are elegiac, and you will hear an example of his magical poetry shortly. Wendell Berry doesn't own a TV, computer, or cell phone. He writes in longhand with a pencil. It's virtually impossible to imagine life in the modern world without our technological accessories, but Berry has consistently presented this Spartan existence as a compelling proposition. An unplugged life rooted in nature is the key to fulfillment. As urban farms and tiny homes and movements to unplug proliferate, it's clear that Wendell Berry is, once again, ahead of us.
The peace of wild things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free.
Balance is a funny thing. This weekend, we're going between summer and fall. We're going between long days and short nights to short days and long nights. But right now, this weekend, everything's equal. We're in the middle. All things are the same. It's good to have balance in life. Sometimes we lose balance, and a day like equinox can help us remember that balance is really important. Now, balance is a funny thing. I would like to be cooler than I am, but I'm all right on here. Let's see what else the playground can teach us about balancing work and play, youth and age, fun, relaxation, and work. One of my favorite things about life is it's always giving you a chance to learn new things. So today we're in the playground and I saw our teeter-totter. I've watched lots of kids play on the teeter-totter, and as a kid, I myself loved being on teeter-totters. But this teeter-totter, I noticed, has a lesson for us. We know teeter-totters, when they work best, are perfectly balanced, like society. But our teeter-totter, like society, is imperfect. And when I release the teeter-totter, it's going to favor one side over here, which is slightly heavier. In a way, we can draw a direct parallel between this and systemic oppression. You have to be a little harder, work a little harder on this side to make it even. It's not terribly uneven. It's not completely broken, but it currently always goes to one side. One side has it easier. The side with all the access to power has it easier. So if you're on this side, you got to work harder. You can still get it to work, don't get me wrong. But it takes more than just equality. It takes equity. So how do we make this equal? How do we give it equity? Well, if I could find a rock or two, I could put it over here for weight and see if that might help. But because of all the careful work of all the volunteers, there are no rocks here. So I can't do that. And I'm not going to complain because no rocks is what makes it safe for the kids to use. But I just thought of another interesting lesson from the playground. Here is another beautiful piece of our playground, painted by volunteers, by people in our congregation and neighborhood, to be bright and shiny and welcoming. It's a lovely place. You can see that some of the paint is beginning to wear off, not because the people who built it don't care and didn't care, but here's another lesson. Good work doesn't get done one time and then it's done. Good work requires working over and over. It requires diligence and paying attention. It requires maintenance of the. You may wonder why I chose to spend so much time in our playground this week. Partly because of the balance we've been talking about, and partly it's about simpler pleasures. Pat talked to us about Wendell Berry and his return to a simpler way. We often think of childhood as being a simpler way, although it's not really true. I hope that by spending time in the playground with you today, I remind you to think about both and. How childhood is complex and fun. How adulthood is a lot of responsibilities and sometimes doesn't seem like much fun, but you can find the fun if you look for it. So next time you're here at the church, stop by the playground. Have a good time. Enjoy yourself. And remember, it's here because people took the responsibility to make it so.
As there is a front of a coin and a back of a coin, there is a time that begins and a time that ends. There's a time that we light our chalice to start our worship together, and a time that we extinguish it to close our time. As I extinguish our chalice, symbol of our faith and our covenant, I know that soon it will be rekindled and we'll be together again.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build a common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for